live from our studios in Brooklyn, New York. It's the Cool Jew Show, bringing you the cool Jews of the world. Brought to you by the best Jewish site for entertainment and news, www.thecooljew.com. I'm your host, Yosef Scheidler, aka Webmaster. Tonight is the 19th of Adar, 5768, and February 24th, 2008. Today's show is sponsored in part by Empire Grill, located on the corner of Kingston and Empire in Brooklyn, New York, for a delicious glatt kosher Israeli and American-style meal. There's nothing better than Empire. At Empire, you will find something for every person in the family, including mouth-watering shawarma, falafel, traditional American-style dishes, and low-fat salads. Empire is the perfect choice for tonight's dinner. Check out their website on the side of the Cool Jew homepage at www.thecooljew.com. Today's special guest is Dr. Arnie Gotfryd PhD, who will be speaking about the connection between Torah and science. Dr. Gotfryd is a popular speaker and writer who understands secular and religious perspectives from both sides of the fence. He earned Canada's first doctorate in Applied Ecology and taught an award-winning accredited course on faith and science at the University of Toronto. After Dr. Gotfryd, we'll have some music, news, weather, and more. And now, the Cool Jew Show. Welcome back to the studios of the Cool Jew. Can science and Torah be combined? Can they coexist? We have here in the studios with us, on the line, Dr. Arnie Gotfryd.
Hi,
You're
Yossi.
on the line. How are you doing today?
Thank God, very well. How are you, Yossi?
Welcome onto the show.
Thank you very much. You're the cool Jew.
Well, you are Dr. Arnie Gotfryd, and you call yourself, according to your website, which is www.arniegotfryd.com, Doctor of Faith and Science. So, what does Doctor of Faith and Science mean?
What does that mean? We're living in a world where people are kind of dysfunctional, that they have attitudes and preconceptions that are just relics of the 19th century. They're not sustainable in terms of where life is really at. They're not aware of the most modern advances of science, and they're not aware of where the soul of the Torah, especially Hasidus, has gotten us to, and how these two are working together synergistically. So I guess whatever healing we need in our personal lives and in our societies and the world at large can be addressed a little bit by bridging. And that's what being a doctor of science and faith means. I help people bridge their different worlds so they're integrated and harmonious.
Mm-hmm. Do you deal in any particular type of science?
Well, yeah, I have my doctorate in Applied Ecology, and I practiced environmental impact assessment for many years for government and corporate and private clients.
What does that mean, and how is that applied in a practical way?
How is it applied in a practical way? There's a couple of types of things. One general area is if you want to do a land development, build a building or any other thing that you want to do in developing land, you have to know how that impacts on the soil, on the water, on the plants, on the animals, on the communities, and how that in turn will affect people as well. All that requires the science of applied ecology to predict, to monitor, and to manage. And that's one of the areas. Another one is environmental health, like power transmission lines that emit very low frequency electromagnetic radiation that is known to have a biological impact and affect human health. So there's another type of example of where it comes in handy.
So, in your particular field of science that you are you specialize in, what ways would you say you can see a connection between Torah and science that you could relate?
Well, let me make one general comment, and I'll answer a specific comment. The general comment is that since one God made them both, meaning that Torah is the will and wisdom of God, and science is how that will and wisdom is manifest in the material world and its laws. So when we understand science, we're really understanding what we call the backside of God, the hinder part of His wisdom. So really, by mastering Torah, you get a particular insight into how nature and its laws work as well. And from the converse side, by understanding nature and its laws, you understand better the lawgiver and how he works. Now, just to give you a particular insight regarding ecology, I mean, one of the biggest things that we have in the environmental movement, and ecology and environment are synonymous in most people's mind, is act local and think global. The butterfly effect, that the little things that you do affect the world at large and in a much more dramatic and broad-scale way than we ever would have dreamed. That is very integral, actually, to Hasidic thinking. I just saw a verse today. It came up actually randomly on my website when I was trying to search a page for an article. There's a verse in Yeshayahu, Isaiah, a little child, small child shall lead them, which the Lubavitcher Rebbe interprets as one small person, even a child, could impact the entire world through his good deed. Let me tell you one cute little thing here. I noticed that one of the things that people are really concerned about is global warming, the melting of the polar ice caps, the flooding of coastal regions, and so on. That's something that has a prototype in the Medrash and Talmudic legends surrounding the Noahide flood. They say that the flood was hot, that it was caused by ethical problems, and it was actually an act local, think global thing. They quote in this Medrash that a case of a fruit vendor. Can I tell you this one? It's a very interesting story. It's a case of a fruit vendor who took a number of people to court about 4,000 years ago. They were sampling his fruit, and the profit margins were very low, and they never bought anything. They came by, they'd have a grape, a fig, a date, a this, a that, a pomegranate, and they'd say, no thanks, we're not interested in buying anything today. But enough of these people did this, so he went under. He took them to court, and the judge threw it out. On what grounds? It's only a little bit, and everybody does it.
So this is a midrash from Noah, correct?
Right, a midrash on Noah from the Talmud. So it's only a little bit and everybody does it. Well, wow, doesn't that sound like the greenhouse gases that melt the polar ice caps and cause the flood? It's only a little bit and everybody does it. So really conservation comes down to an ethical issue, as one of the fathers of American conservation, David Ehrenfeld, said in his book, The Arrogance of Humanism. So I like to spread that message that God and ethical living are integral to having true sustainability, whether we're talking about environments or societies.
Dr. Gotfryd, now that you're on the subject, a couple of the things that I wanted to discuss there, we had some of our listeners out there submit some questions into us. One of the questions that was submitted into the show for you to answer and give your opinion on is, being that you're a scientist and you deal in science, do you find in Torah, and from your research in science, what is your view on global warming? Is there a source in Torah for it? Do you feel that we're in imminent danger? Has this whole global warming thing been embellished, exaggerated? How do you stand on that?
Right. Well, it's a very highly politicized issue, and sometimes because of the politics, the science itself becomes obscured. You have literally thousands of scientists that are on both sides of the question. Everybody understands that the planet is going through a warming phase. What the real issue that we don't know is, how much of that is because of people. Obviously, when you were 1 billion people and then 2 billion and 4 and now, 7, there's going to be more of an impact of human life and its activities. We do have an ecological footprint as a species, and that does lead to warming. Carbon dioxide is produced by all of our industrial activities. It is a greenhouse gas. But I've just read in a science journal, and I think it was reported also in Discover, that global warming may be saving the planet, because what really drives temperatures, the astrophysicists think, are solar cycles. And we seem to have been peaking in solar activity lately, and we're headed for a big chill from the sun. And if the planet's getting a little bit warmer because of human activity, that will stabilize the temperatures within the comfortable living range. What does the future hold? The scientists cannot predict this one. There are too many variables. You could say I'm copping out. I think I'd rather take a true scientific answer and say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying that when you look at global warming, you see a positive aspect from it?
Sorry, again, a positive?
A positive aspect from global warming seems to be what you're implying.
I'm saying that the scientists are reporting that global warming may save the planet, because we're headed towards a period of global chilling from the sun, reduced insolation, reduced warming effects from the sun.
Uh-huh. And I know you're trying to cop out on this question here, as you said previously. But, on this issue, do you see anything from Torah that would be able to relate to this issue? Would be able
Sure. Besides what I spoke about already with Noah, you've got a statement in the Tanya, which is the first really authoritative Hasidic text and still is very fundamental for anybody who wants to explore Kabbalah or the Pnimiyut Torah, the inner dimensions of Torah, that it's discussing at length the verse that says that the sun in the future time will be removed from its sheath, the wicked will be judged, and the righteous will be rewarded through this new level of radiation. So there are various levels of interpreting this, but we have an ozone protective layer. Who knows whether one of the dimensions of interpretation could be what we're going through now, that even though the ozone layer has been healing, and it's one of our successes, it seems, through global reduction of chlorofluorocarbons and the political unity that drove that movement, perhaps we have been making an impact, but it is a sheath around the world, the ionosphere, and it has a protective aspect. So that could be part of it.
Any other ways that you would see it, or?
Well, I think one of the things about global warming that kind of inspires me in a way is we really focus on sustainability when we fear for the future of our planet. And that is actually a correct attitude. It may not be environmental factors that destroy us, but there is a true threat from political instability, from moral inequity, and especially when traits like that are in the upper echelons of power, that puts us all in real jeopardy. We're living in a tinder keg of a planet right now. I mean, I think that if ecology has anything to offer, one of the most favorable signs I see right now is that the hippies of the 60s and 70s are now solidly in the ruling elite of American society, and the 40-year ride that the oil industry has had, together with the weapons industry, together with the political infrastructure of the United States and so on, and the world in general, is basically addicted to oil. And we've got enough alternative energy capability to get off that, but there's so much at stake. The halls of power are filled with people who are co-opted to the oil industry. So in order to get out of that, you need a very aggressive consumer investor leadership, elite in the country, in the United States at least, where you are, and the same in Canada, but to a tenth of the extent, to really say, no, we're not going to go any further with this. Mm-hmm. We're going to have true sustainability, environmentally, politically, socially, and that sustainability movement, like the children and grandchildren of the hippies, they're the ones with the universal picture. I think if we give them a little bit of the traditional faith perspective from the Torah, that will be the winning combination that will, propel politics in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Another question that was sent in to us by some of our listeners out there. You are an author, or have authored several books. One, Living in the Age of Mashiach. Another one you've translated from Professor Barnaver,
Yes.
Mind Over Matter. So one of our listeners sent in to us, if you maybe can speak more about alien life form according to Torah. Do UFOs exist? Is there life out there besides what is here on Earth? What does Torah have to say about this?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, I'm not a space traveler, but I can tell you what I've learned. Everything, first we have to understand that everything is alive. There's biological life and there's inorganic life. Everything has a sustaining utterance. You can get a book by Rabbi Steinsaltz, Adin Steinsaltz, Evan Yisrael, as he now calls himself. Everything has a soul. Rocks have a soul. So there's life everywhere. But if you want to talk about biological life as we know it, that may also exist elsewhere. I mean, they found very strong signs of life on Mars. We have a Navi, a Jewish prophet in the books of Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, that talks about, cursed be the inhabitants of Mars, that they didn't come to the aid of the Jews in their fight against, I think it was Sisera. Was it the Assyrians? I don't know. My Tanakh is not very strong. Anyway, so we understand that life on Mars and other planets is a definite possibility. What we also understand from the Torah, though, is that intelligent life, meaning life having ability to freely choose between good and evil, as a Torah perspective on intelligence would say that truly intelligent life is characterized by the ability to choose between good and evil. That type of life couldn't exist elsewhere. And for a logical reason. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe discusses this, and that's also in my book, Mind Over Matter. He explained to a scientific delegation that came to him and asked exactly that question, that if there were intelligent life elsewhere, and they did have free choice, then they would have moral values, and they would have to be, and the only way they could have good and evil is if they had a Torah. And since there's only one Torah that God gave to the Jewish people here on this earth, therefore there isn't such life elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. There was a story I recently heard, which presents someone coming to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and saying that I guess he was working with NASA or some other organization that deals in space and the like, and he asked the similar question to the Rebbe about life on other planets, and the Rebbe told him that he should keep looking for life on other planets, and if he finds them, he should teach them about Torah. Any response to that?
Yeah, the only thing which is incorrect about that, as to my knowledge, is that they should teach them about Torah. That wasn't said, or at least it wasn't reported by those who were present at the time. You're speaking about Velvel Green, or now Zev Green, who is a professor of public health administration at the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. And he, as an exobiologist working for NASA, maybe it's already 2-3 decades ago, he went to the Rebbe actually requisitioned binders that NASA had on their entire exobiology or life in space program, and was permitted to review them. Some 30 binders of information. And the Rebbe, having been commissioned by the U.S. Armed Forces, he used to work at the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and there's still a classified Project Yehudi, which has been attributed to the Rebbe, apparently having to do with stealth technology. So yeah, I guess he had some lasting intelligence clearance and reviewed these binders in fairly short order, unbelievably short order. And to Professor Green, the Rebbe said pretty much what you said, that no reason to believe that life elsewhere doesn't exist. It should be sought, because to imagine that life could not exist elsewhere would limit the power of God. So really, it's testimony to the greatness of God to seek life in outer space, and there's some nobility to the effort.
Mm-hmm. And I guess coming to a similar topic over here, just another one of the questions that was submitted in, on the basis of Big Bang Theory, according to Torah, how do we reconcile the two of those?
Okay, so if we say the question is about the age of the universe and about reconciliation of Torah and science, that big question. So there's two problems with, on the basis of the Big Bang Theory, how do we reconcile Torah and science? First point is that science is conditional and tentative, and their theories always change, whereas Torah is the revealed will and wisdom of God, and just as God is unchanging, the Torah is unchanging. So if the Torah tells us that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested, then regardless of the fact that there was no sun and moon or way to measure, nor human beings on the first 3 days there was no sun and moon, first 5 days there were no human beings to observe, and so on, we still have to deal with the Pshat, or the simple level of interpretation, and Ein Mikra Yose Midei Pshuto, Scripture doesn't leave its simple meaning. So what do we do with the 13.7 billion years that the cosmos is old? So let me address Big Bang from within the physics itself. First of all, interesting thing, there is a professor, an astrophysicist, who published recently a paper, and I've got a link to it on my website. It's in an astrophysics journal.
Your website again is www.arniegotfryd.com? Correct.
Which is under maintenance. It may or may not be up. It'll probably take me a week or two to get it functional. Yeah, ARNIEGOTFRYD.com. Or you can email me at in the interim at Arnie@Gotfryd.com, and I'll take care of your concerns, God willing. But what I wanted to say is, he writes in an astrophysics journal that the age of the universe of 13.7 billion years is in fact a cosmological constant, and has been since the first cosmological day. That means from the first day of creation, we have a 13.7 billion year old universe. Things have happened since. A 6-day creation, he writes, fits fine within that context, and there is no contradiction. A second point is, the Big Bang, as reported in New Scientist magazine, in Discover, in various journals, in Physics Letters B, all kinds of real science journals, the Big Bang Theory is heavily in doubt altogether. It had a great 50-year run. It works really well, but even the cosmic background radiation, or what was believed to be the cosmic background radiation, that Arno Penzias discovered and got a Nobel Prize for, is now seen as not a flat wave, but actually seems to be an artifact, kind of like a stellar shadow around stellar objects, and it just doesn't seem to work. And now that we have space telescopes with huge powers of resolution, we're really finding more and more problems with the Big Bang. Google this: 50 problems with the Big Bang, or just problems with the Big Bang. You'll come up with some fabulous articles. Again, I've got a review on my website, but you don't have to trust me. Listen to the cosmologists. A couple of years ago, there was a big conference in Portugal where everybody was clamoring for, all these astrophysicists were clamoring for alternatives in cosmology because nobody of the old guard seems to allow new ideas to emerge. So religiously, they adhere to the outdated Big Bang model. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that scientists have their doubts. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we don't need to adjust Torah or its meanings or look for obscure Kabbalistic statements that can reconcile 16 billion years with 14 billion years. I mean, one of the other problems, and again, I love science, I'm proud to be a scientist, but when we're looking at the age of the universe, you know, we're assuming that everything having been equal, everything being then the way it is now, this is how old the universe seems to have been. That's a very conditional, tentative statement. In no way does it challenge the Torah.
Mm-hmm. So that's your view on the age of the universe, Big Bang theory. You've also authored, I mentioned this earlier, another book, Living in the Age of Mashiach, where you try and connect in there a lot about the present situation that we are in, and showing how that we, as we are living right now, are on the threshold of Mashiach, on the threshold of the redemption. We are soon going to see Mashiach. Now,
absolutely.
One of the things, it's another one of the questions that was submitted into our show over here. You mentioned in your book about the first Gulf War in Iraq being a point in time that's leading to Mashiach. Now, would you have anything that you could follow up based on the second Gulf War and the war that's still going on and the threat with Iran and what it all means on a level, on a connection to Mashiach?
Very, very good question. These are pretty hard times to live in. I would not want to say that anything negative that's going on is a necessity. We've had enough negativity in this world. We've had enough war, and our duty and our faith coincide in this point that Mashiach is coming today. This is what we have to, it's one of the 13 principles of faith, not to just believe that eventually Mashiach will come, but to anticipate, which means now. So, whatever age we're in, we are looking at what Torah says about this time as to why it may be special. The Torah scholars from all sides of the issue, whether Hasidic or Litvish or Sephardi or anything else, they all concur that we are living not only according to faith in the imminent era of Mashiach, but that the signs have all been fulfilled, and it's just any time.
When you say
regarding
signs,
the Gulf War itself,
when you say signs, you mean the signs mentioned by the prophets, or what do you define as signs?
Right, I define as signs those signs that are in Tanakh, the Milchemet Gog uMagog, right?
War of Gog and Magog.
Right. Also, there's a midrashim called Yalkut Shimoni, Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer. There are midrashim, there are statements in the Zohar. All of these things even clearly, eerily, frighteningly describe 9/11, describe the campaign of Al-Qaeda by sea, by land, by air, the missiles with fire, the towers collapsing in the capital of Romi, which at that time was Rome, but Rome also means the superpower. It's called Rome because Ram Venisa, it was a great and uplifted city. What greater city than New York? What greater towers than the World Trade? Yes, the prophets have foreseen it. We couldn't say it was fulfilled previously, but actually I know there were hundreds of people actually studying this prophecy in the Zohar and the Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, but especially in the Zohar, weeks before 9/11. Weeks before 9/11. So it's not only ad hoc speculation, it's demonstrable. But for me, I can't presume to read the signs in politics, read the prophets and say, yeah, I know 100% this is that. But when someone of the stature of the Lubavitcher Rebbe points his finger to a Yalkut Shimoni and says, when it says that the king of Arabia the king of Persia challenges the king of Arabia, and those that are living in Israel are afraid and they don't know where to go. And Mashiach says, don't be afraid, I've done everything for your sake, you're safe. Higias man Gulaschem, the time of your redemption has arrived. He says this is a one-to-one correspondence with what is happening now. The announcements are being made now, and he made some wild predictions that couldn't have been known, like during the 39 Scuds, that no one will be harmed. Meanwhile, people were flying from New York to Tel Aviv for $50 because nobody wanted to go in the middle of a war zone with Scuds falling from Iraq. And the Rebbe kept saying, don't worry, it's safe. In fact, he even told them, you don't need to wear gas masks. And then people complained because there was panic. Why aren't the Lubavitchers wearing gas masks? They're defying the Israeli government and the army. Tzahal. So the Rebbe said, look, if you want for show, you can put on a gas mask. But you don't need it, because there won't be any gas attack. And it wasn't. Who could know this? Nobody could know this at the time. So the combination of the prophetic predictions, identifying it with the Messianic times, and even making the statements attributed to Mashiach in that prophecy and saying that prophecy is fulfilled now, that's yet a further sign that we're really there. Mm-hmm. What's been happening in the last 14 years? Why have it been so bad? By divine providence, we're speaking during the week that we read about the golden calf. And what was the big problem? Moshe went up for 40 days. They miscalculated. They counted the first day. They didn't count the last day. They said, this Moshe is dead. It's over. Let's finish. Let's get on with life. Let's try something else. That was a mistake. And I think that if we simply wait with faith and with practicality as well, but with faith, then we'll be better off than the generation of the desert.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything particular that you would say you see a connection between Iran, the threat of Iran, Iraq, the second Gulf War, second war in Iraq? Particular signs that you see clearly from Torah that you would connect the two?
Except that we're dealing with the same. You know what? I'm not going to comment because I'm just too ignorant on the subject. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Another question, going back to science here, I'm just reading down a list. We got in quite a list of questions over here. Somebody asked, is there a way in science to see Achdus Hashem, the unification of God, that there is only one God, there is no other power in the universe? Is there something in science that can clearly show that?
Yes and no. I would say that since 1982, and a set of experiments that were performed by Alain Aspect in France, testing a theory called non-locality, which is an outcome of quantum physics. Since then, many, many scientists are claiming that they basically found God in the laboratory. And, of course, you cannot see God, but at the same time, they've managed to disclose I'll tell you. Let me quote you what they have found, and you tell me if this sounds like God or it doesn't. They've disclosed this, and I'm going to say a little bit of scientific gobbledygook, but this is what they say: that the ultimate ground of reality is an indivisible wholeness beyond space and time, which is conscious and interacts with human consciousness to bring reality from a potential to an actual state, everywhere and at all times. Again, the ultimate ground of reality is an indivisible wholeness beyond space and time, which is conscious and interacts with human consciousness to bring reality from potential to actual. It sounds like Hamachadesh betuvo bechol yom tamid maaseh bereshit. It reads like a siddur. It reads like a prayer book. It's
just to translate out there for. Can you translate that verse out there for?
Yeah, I just did. I did. Who renews in His goodness the entire work of creation every day on a continuous basis. That's what God does. Look, they say that, and what's an indivisible wholeness? It doesn't have any parts. Does God have parts? Does He have a face? Does He have a hand? Of course, the Torah speaks about the face and hand of God, but not like we understand faces and hands. God is not a composite. He's an indivisible. They say that reality, they've discovered the indivisibleness. They've discovered that space and time are fake in comparison with this. And I can actually, if it would be not a radio show but a TV show, I could kind of demonstrate what they did in those experiments so that the average high school student would be able to understand how they got there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is the basis of movies like, The Matrix and What the Bleep Do We Know and The Secret and so on. People are capitalizing on this new science, on the power of attraction, which recognizes two things. One is that human beings are significant, and the other is that there's some great unity that's out there and here at the same time that we participate in, especially with our consciousness. This is a step forward. This is a step towards recognizing ultimate unity, and that people aren't just flotsam in some great big machine.
Mm-hmm. So that is what you have to say on Achdus Hashem. Just a couple more questions sent in to us, and then I have some.
Oh, by the way, if my website, I know my website was up tonight, but it's probably going to go down for maintenance tomorrow. If you do manage to get to ArnieGotfryd.com, look at the last newsletter, click on the newsletter link, and you'll get the newest theory of everything. There's a theory of everything, I think it's called E8, whatever it is. It's an 8-dimensional space, but they use a kind of a multi-dimensional geometry to explain all the forces of nature. This is the best case yet. It's better than string theory. It's the newest theory of everything. Now, what's special about it? Can you still hear me? Because I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay. What the special about it is that it looks, if you take a look at the movie that's associated with it to show how it works as a dynamic, it is exactly a Magen David, a Star of David, in the midst of all these chaotic points, and it's the Star of David that makes sense of everything. Mm-hmm. It almost looks as if the universe and its laws and all its minutiae are all at its very core and heart Jewish. Mm-hmm. It's funny.
I'm kind of blown away here on all these points you're making over here. Interesting question that's kind of become popular over the past couple of years. It's becoming more and more widespread. Is the idea of Torah Codes. I didn't really see that anywhere in your book.
Right.
What do you have to say about Torah Codes? For those of you out there, Torah Codes are the idea of finding not randomly, but equally spaced letters in the Torah, making codes about events that were to take place in the future. there is a big debate in the scientific community about that. What do you have to say on Torah codes?
Okay. We know, first of all, from the Torah perspective, that there are codes in the Torah, that there are skip sequences, but the way to analyze them may not be the way that they're being sought out now. We know that Maimonides and Nachmanides and Weissmandl and different Chachamim through the, I don't want to equate everybody on the same level, but still, many have studied it, many have used it, and so on. But there, I think, must be some kind of a Masorah involved as to what and how. But the way it's done now, through the skip sequences, and I'm referring to, for example, the book called The Bible Code, and certain movements that really emphasize the presentation of Bible codes. One of my colleagues at the University of South Wales, chairman of the Department of Statistics, Avraham HaSofer, said many years ago already, many years ago, at least 20 years ago, that these 15, 20, something like that these skip sequences should not be used because it is the natural property of large data sets that when you'll look at them as in terms of these different shaped crossword puzzles that these skip sequences are, you will get different similarly meaning words crisscrossing and telling a putative story. But he says that since you'll get the same phenomenon with a novel or something else, eventually someone will come with their own religious text and prove that their religion is divine origin using the very same method. And therefore, there's no point to look at that. Our proof of divinity is the Sinai experience and the unbroken tradition from there. And those are all the messages that we really need. Now, what happened since then? He said this a long time ago. Well, since then, they've actually analyzed those skip sequences for War and Peace, Tolstoy's novel, and another religion claims to have used exactly those skip sequences to verify all their fundamentals of faith. So where does that leave us, with our seminars using the skip sequences? Not on the highest ground, I think.
Mm-hmm. So that is, I guess your view on Torah codes. We're running out of time here. One question, I know this gets a little bit more controversial, but I have somebody who sent this in, and it's a quote that you made back in '96 in a Chabad publication called The Beis Mashiach. And you're quoted in the book by a person, Mati Berger. You say over here, so who is Elokeinu, who is Avinu, who is Malkeinu, who is Moshienu, who is Yoshienu, Igalenu, Yoshienu Bekarov. Now this is a quote from the Kedusha in Musaf on Shabbos morning, and you answer it by saying that it is the Rebbe King Messiah. What Berger comes out and he puts you on, and I guess there was a letter sent out to the Orthodox Union about your statement that he was quote shaken by this material. What is your response to that?
Yes, you weren't referring to Mati Berger, but David Berger, and I don't know how shaken he was because his anti-Chabad sentiment is known not only before, during, but since. So this is something that's absolutely not new. But to discuss the matter more specifically, let's take a look at the words, and I'll tell you what I meant by what I said. I was speaking in poetic language. For example, Avinu, we refer to human beings as Avinu as well. We refer to God as being our Father, but God is not a man. We refer to judges as Elokim. Today is Tuesday. We said it in the Shir Shel Yomer, the song of the day. King David says it in Psalms. we have nothing better than the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, where God says that Moses is going to be Elokim LeParo. He's going to be God to Paro, so to speak, and Aaron will be his prophet. There's no end of ways that shouldn't say no end of ways. Angels are also referred to as Elokim when they're on the mission of God. So my intent was that the Rebbe, as being the Moses of our time, is our life force and gives us our ability by being connected with the Rebbe, as every chassid feels he has this energy from his Rebbe to serve God the best way, and in no way, shape, or form do we deify the Rebbe. But to quote other Chassidim of Slonim, who are not Chabad Chassidim, they have a beautiful expression. Whatever a simple Jew will imagine about the greatness of God does not come up to the level of what a tzaddik really is. It means that tzaddik is greater than what we imagine God to be. God is, of course, greater than what the tzaddik is, because the tzaddik is only a creation of God. And when one wishes to misunderstand, they will find a way to do so. Unfortunately, those misunderstandings have created in the mind of the public vast misunderstandings, and I should say also that I am sorry for anyone who's misunderstood my words to deify any person, including the Rebbe. But at the same time, I believe every tzaddik, every true tzaddik, the way the Tanya calls a tzaddik, and every Hasidic Rebbe is among them, a real Hasidic Rebbe that is a window on God, that when one contemplates their life, their teachings, their love, their fear, their faith, they are transparent. They have clarity, to borrow Noach Weinberg's expression. They have clarity to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore they don't have conflicted agendas, and therefore that's where the light is shining through. Like the Shechina is with every minyan. We don't have many Shechinas. We have one godly presence, that when there's a minyan, it's shining over there. Like the sun shines through your different windows. We don't see there are many suns. There's one God, and he shines where the glass is clear. Unfortunately, where I am, it's not as clear as it is as where a Rebbe is. So that's my meaning. Take it or leave it.
Well, we are just about out of time. So, Dr. Gotfryd, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show this evening. And send me a link to the interview. We will definitely do so. We look forward to having you back on the show sometime in the future, and getting a chance to find out more about science and Torah. But blessing and success to you with your new narrowcast or broadcast, whatever you call it, on the internet, and may it bring the hearts of more Jews to their Father in heaven. Thank you very much, and a good evening to you. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Dr. Arnie Gotfryd here on The Cool Jew Show. Now over to the News Center to discuss this week's news. In the news this week, Wednesday morning, hundreds, if not thousands of people around the New York area received the Hamodia with a notice inside signed by over 30 major rabbis discussing whether or not it is permissible to attend a concert in Madison Square Garden on March 9th, conducted by Shia Mendowitz, performing with Lipa Schmelzer and Shlomi Gertner. 30 Rabbanim signed that it is forbidden to attend this event. The following day in Borough Park, a letter was distributed saying that this original letter was false. Now, there was a final answer on Friday morning when the Hamodia released that they had contacted the rabbis and had concluded that they had indeed signed a letter stating that it is forbidden to attend this event. There is a lot of controversy going on with this. Cool Jew has done several exclusives on this, including calling up different stores that are selling the tickets. You can find this and more on the Cool Jew. Also, whether there is a relation between this week's eclipse and the big event scandal going on. All this and more can be found on thecooljew.com. Now, over to the weather and a song. Here is the 10-day forecast. Tonight, mostly clear. Monday, a partly cloudy day, high of 46, low of 34. Tuesday, rain, high of 46, low of 36. Wednesday, snow showers and wind, high of 36, low of 20. Thursday, partly cloudy, high of 31, low of 21. Friday, partly cloudy, high of 40, low of 38. Saturday, Shabbos, rain, snow, showers all together in one, high of 40, low of 30. And bringing you back to next Sunday, a sunny day for you. That's it for weather here on The Cool Jew. We thank you for tuning in this week. Stay tuned next week for another podcast, another person, another cool Jew. And now, over to the music of the week.
Oi, Rebbe, 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 Rebbe,